Morning. We're learning as a schoskur for Shlema Filan Chaya Basarach, and as an aliyah for the neshama of Meir ben Elazar. We're on Ayin Dalet Amin Aleph on the top line. Yosef Rav Yosef Kameder Rav Huna. Yosef Ka'amar. Rav Yehuda Marav. Rav Yosef was sitting in front of Rav Huna, and he said b'shem Rav Yehuda, who said b'shem Rav. So Rav Yosef was saying what Rav Shita was. We had just said Rabbi Yochanan says that if by Aver Hamadoldo, a hanging Aver, if it's Aidei Misa, then it's considered to be separated and it's going to be in a velo or Aver Menachai. But if it's Shachot, then it's not Nipul. What is Rashita? So he said, Achul Lezeh Loika. If someone were to eat this, which Rashi teaches Achul Lezeh, being this aver that is go if he gets malchus. One of the Rabbanan said that you shouldn't agree. This is what Rabbi Yosef said b'shem Rav Huna. That Rabbi Yosef said b'shem Rav Yehuda Marav. That he's like a hachi Rav Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marta mishmei derav Achul Lezeh ain't like. He said you don't get malchus. Amle Rav Huna. Now, that discussion that we had before was about nevela, whether it's treated as Eva Menachai, Legabi nevela, but Legabi eating it, everyone said you can't eat it. We had ended off by saying that according to Rabbi Yochanan, if you see the top right at the end of Rabbi Yochanan, they say that it's only midrabanan, and midaraisa, it's not aser midaraisa to eat. So Amalei Rav Huna, Anan Aman Nisbach. Rav Huna said we have these the differing psakim from Rav. One he says you do get malchus, one he says you don't. Adinu Rabbi Yosef la'apei. Rabbi Yosef was displeased that Rav Huna said he doesn't know what to do. Amalei Mai Kusha. He said this is not really a stira, even though I said Rabbi Yosef had said that you get malchus, and then we said b'shem Rav Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marta you don't get malchus. Ki amriyana b'misa da'oisenipol. Where did I say that it's da'iraisa going to be considered eva menachai? That's where the animal that had this aver that was medoldol, that was hanging, that's where it died. It didn't have a shchita. So therefore we said oisenipol, that it's considered to be eva menachai. It's as if it's separated, and it's going to have a din daraisa of eva menachai. Ki amar iu b'shchita te'ena oisenipol, but he said it by shchita, which is not oisenipol, like we said before. And that's only midrabanan, like we concluded in Rabbi Yochanan. Amarav minaha milsadam rabana misa oisenipol shchita ena oisenipol. The sevachalash yipol of mehem b'moisam yitma. We learn it out from the pasuk. The pasuk says legabi sheretz, that a dead sheretz is tameh, and anything that falls on it while they're dead yitma will become tameh. Now, what does it say b'moisam? What does it say b'moisam? It already said earlier in the pasuk that it's talking about benivlasam, by a dead sheretz. So lumute mai. When we say b'moisam, what does it come in mai? Ilim lumute b'chayeyem. If you say stamazay, it's coming to tell you that it has to be a dead sheretz and not a live sheretz in order to be mitama. Minivlasam nach. The Torah says v'chiyipol nivlasam al kol zerazu asher yizra taru. We say that if when it's a nevela, it falls on grass it falls on some plant that's still attached to the ground, it doesn't become tamei. But it's mashma that is only because it's in the blossom that it would have become tamei. So we know that it's talking about a dead animal. So what does it say? B'moisam alishma mina misa oisenipol vein shchita oisenipol. The Torah says misa to tell you the distinction between whether you have a aver medoldo and you kill the animal without a shchita, then it's oisa nipol, and midaraisa, it's an ever menachai. But if it's you shchita, then it doesn't become ever menachai, midaraisa. How are you learning this out from that pasuk? It's not talking about an Ever Medoldol. There's no Evarim, there's no Shchita. What are you talking about? It's talking about Shrotzim. Amalei, meaning Shrotzim, Blab Meshchita, Nenu Tneu, and Yilabehemo. He says, listen, it says b'maisa, and we're using that to darshan for some reason. It's not clear why this is. I guess this is the only thing we have to darshan. It's coming to tell you the nafkamina between misa and shchita, lagabi and ever medoldo. Now clearly that is not relevant to a sheretz. A sheretz, there's no shchita of a sheretz. Yishech l'sheretz is the same sheretz as it was before. It's still going to have the same tumah of a sheretz. So it must be talking about a behema that is ever medoldo. Correct. The Gemara vakati mi baile. Your whole vart is dependent on the fact. The main inyan l'shratzim, tneu inyan for behema. That's shchuta or misa, but we need that puzzle with something else. Ke'ein misa lachen mi baile. Ke'ein misa lachen metam and yeveshin ein metam. We need it to tell you that. That it's only it says b'moisa. That means it has to be ke'ein misa, which is to tell you that a sheretz is only metama when it's still not dried out. But yeveshin ain't metama. Once it gets dried out, then it becomes like dust, and it's no longer able to be metama. At some point, everything decomposes; it loses its status as a sheretz, and it becomes that it's not metama with tumas sheretz. So Gemara Treva Moisim Ksivi, the pasuk says twice. Pasuk says V'chol Hashiba La Mehem B'Moisim Yitim Mikol Kliyes Beged Yorei Sak V'chol Kliyashi Yasam Malachim Mehem Tamei Yad Arev, and it says Chiba V'Vasam Al Chazer Zua. What does it say twice? It says, yeah, Ela Hatmeim Lachem B'Chol Sheretz Konegem Mehem B'Moisim Yitmar Arev. That's the pasuk right before this previous, and then it says V'chol Hashiba La Mehem B'Moisam Yitma. So we have twice B'Moisam. One taka tells you that it has to be lach in order to be metama tuma, and the second one is for our drasha that's telling you a behema that has a medoldol. It's going to be metama when it's a misa, not when it's a shchita. Amr of Chizda machloikus be'ever de ober chai. This machloikus is by. So we're going now all the way back to the original Mishnah, right, where we had said about a aver that's sticking out. Rameir had said that it's going to be that aver sticking out when you shecht the mother, and then later on you cut off that aver. Rameir said it's going to be metama tumas nevela. The Chum said it's only going to be metama with the light tumah of tumas treifa. So Rav Chizda says machlokes be'eved de uber chai. This machlokes is only when the uber itself is alive. Avo be'eved de uber mace. But if you have a uber mace that's inside of the mother, and the aver is sticking out, everyone will agree in that case to Rameir that the shchita will make it treated as an avela, and it's going to become tamei. The aver mace. The in order for the shchita of the mother to make it that it's going to be part of the. So how does that work? Let me see Rashi. So Rashi, the overchai, the yesh min shchita, mahan shchita af lever hayotze latari. That's only by a overchai. But an aver mace, everyone will say shchita oise nipple. And Rava says No, it's going to be the same machlokes. It's not just an Aver Chai, even an Uber Mace. The Chacham is going to disagree and say um, it's not going to be tummy. So it means if it's according to the first pshat, according to Rav Chisda, if you have an Aver of a Uber that's dead, it's not going to remove the tumah of nevela because since it's a separate thing, it's already dead. The shechita on that is not going to be treated as having being mitayr the aver from its tumas nevela. Right? That's this theory of the Chachamim. They say that just like a treifa is mitar, the shechita of a treifa is mitared from the vela. So to the shechita of this aver is going to be mitared from the vela. But according to Rav Chisda, that is limited to an aver chai that is more associated with the mother. The shechita is more effective on the mother. But if it's mace, Rav Chisda is saying it doesn't. It's already not part of the mother. The shechita is not effective on it to make it that it's not an avela. But Rabbah says, no, it's going to be the same thing. We're not going to distinguish between a uber mace and an uber chai. Okay. So now we're going to have to remind ourselves of the cheshbon of the previous Mishnah. We had said in the Mishnah, where does this come from? That a behemoth, a treifa, that when you shecht it, the Mishnah had said, we had it, that was our source for saying that the aver is going to not be metama because we learn it out from, it's not going to be tami tumas nevela. We learn it out from a treifa. Said, where do we treifa? Do we know that the shechita makes it? It's not metama. So we wanted to say, we asked, behemoth tmei asur b'achila, af treifa b'asur b'achila, v'avim metema ein shechitasim taras, af treifa loit tarenu. We had asked from a behemoth tmei, an animal like a chazir, a pig. If you shecht it, it is still a nevela. Shechita does not help to remove it from nevela. So treifa should be the same thing. So Zakmar Loimamata behemoth tmei shel hoysel shasa kosher tember treifa shel hoysel shasa kosher. So you can't compare a behemoth tmei to a treifa. A behemoth tmei was never had a time that it was kosher, so therefore the shechita doesn't help. But a treifa had a time before it became a treifa, therefore the shechita is able to be mitar. Then the Mishnah says, "Tolam achshavesa arish no the treifa minabeten minayin." What about something that was a treifa before it was born? So it never had a shasa kosher. So the Gemara amends changes what the nafkamin is. So the reason why you can't learn a behemoth treifa that it should be metama like a behemoth tmeya after shchita is because there's no such thing. Any kind of chazir is always going to be, shchita is never going to help from it. A treifa, maybe you can't, a treifa you can't shecht, but if you have a different animal, it's not a treifa, you can shecht it. So Zaktu Gemara. So that's the reason why you don't learn out treifa from a tmeya. That tmeya is ein b'min shchita and treifa is. So therefore that's why we're left that a treifa is not going to. If you shecht it, it's not going to be an avei. The Mishnah says, however, you should just be aware. Ben shmoyne chay ein shchita sevitarasoi l'fishe ein b'min shchita. But a corollary of that will be if you have a animal, uber, that is a ben shmeina, which is a non-viable animal, an animal that's being born in the 8th month. So then its shchita is not going to be tired because no 8-month baby, no 8-month uber is capable of being born, and therefore it's never going to be roi for shchita. The Gemara is going to ask, the Gemara is going to address, but it can't be shachat al yidei the mother. When you shech the mother, that will be matara. So that's going to be the discussion. But we're saying that since we said the rule is legabe a treifa that the reason why a treifa is capable of becoming tar from the vela through shchita is because yesh v'minoi shchita. So 8 month uber, since it's an ein b'minoi shchuta, would not become tar al yidei shchita. So Zok the Gemara, ben shmoyne chai. So this is we're quoting from the Mishnah. Fragt the Gemara, Vatanya ben shmoyne chai. Yechiach ben shmoyne chai should prove that something who is b'minoi shachot is not going to be. We're not changing what the halacha is. A ben shmoyne chai is not going to be metar al yidei shchita. But let it prove that it, even though it is found that it has a shchita, that it has that like we mentioned in the Mishnah, that a 8-month-old uber is capable of being shachat if you shech the mother. So even though it is something that yesh v'minoi shchita, it's still going to disprove that teretz that we have given from to be mechalek be treifa and tmeya. We had said that the difference is that treifa is yesh v'minoi shchita and a tmeya is ein v'minoi shchita, but we're seeing that a ben shmeina, even though it's yesh v'minoi shchita, is still aser. Shchita is not going to be metaret. So that disproves our teretz, the teretz of a Mishnah. Rav Kahana yesh bin shchita agavima. And Rav Kahana explained, why is it yesh bin shchita by a ben shmoyne chai? Because when you shech the mother, it also becomes tar. Our Mishnah did not have this upshlag of the explanation of the ben shmoyne chai, because he said that the fact that you could shecht it through the mother does not mean yesh b'minoi shchita. It just as a side thing, when you shecht the mother, the uber becomes tar, but it's not considered to be a b'minoi of a ben shmeina that it's going to be considered shchuta, and therefore it's not shver that by the ben shmeina that it doesn't become tar al yidei shchita. According to the Tana that we had just quoted in the Brisa, that does say that the treifa of a shchita should be why is it that a treifa of a shchita is metaret? It's a tameh, and we had tried to be mechalik between yesh b'minah and ein b'minah, and we had said, but what about the ben shmeina, which the Tana of the Brisa that we just quoted says that it's yesh b'minah treif, yesh b'minah tamei. So how's he going to know that a treifa shchitas and tarasai? Why isn't it like a tamei? So we learn it out from a different source, so it's nothing to do with the behemoth tamei. Some people say it's from Yudam Rav, some will say we had a Brisa of this. When one of the behema dies, mixes a hema the tama, mixes behema ein matama. When we say that it becomes an avela when it dies, it says minha behema, some of them. So some behemoths, it applies to some behemoths that it becomes tama when it dies, and others it doesn't. Ve'ezu zu treifa sheshachta, which is the mixas behema that doesn't become tama. That's a treifa that you shechted. So that's the source that a behema that is a treifa that you shecht is not metamatomus nevela. We learn it out from a pasuk. So therefore, it's not subject to the question from tuma, from behema tmei. Boyer of Hoshia. Hoshia asks another question. Hoshia des yadai lemeya behema. If someone stuck his hand in, we're gonna come back to our Mishnah to answer this question. But he asked this question: if someone sticks his hand into the womb of the mother behema, v'shachad ben tes chai, and he shechs a viable animal that was inside the mother, and he shechs it. Ma, what's it then? Is that going to be considered a valid shchita for that behema, for that uber? That even if the mother dies without a shchita, that you cut the two semanim of the vlad, is that considered shchita? Tibayler Rameir, Tibayler Rabban. This could be a question according to a mayor who says that an uber that's sticking out. I'm sorry. This is the Rameir and the Rabbanan in the following Mishnah, which we haven't seen yet. But the question over there is if you find a ben tishachai, does it when you shech the mother, does it need a shchita? So Rameir says it needs a shchita, and the Chum say no, the shchita of the mother is metar. So Zok the Gemara. This this the Gemara says this question will be either according to Rameir or according to Rabban. To boil Rameir, ad kan lekam Rameir ben pakua ton shchita. That which Rameir says that a full-born uber inside of the mother needs its own shchita. Hanimicha diyatz lavir oilam. That's only when it came out of the mother. Then it needs its own shchita. It's born. Avo b'mei imai l'shari le'shchita. But as long as it's in the mother, that it's capable of getting a shchita from the mother, it's the mother's that preempts the ability to shecht the animal inside. Aydilma afilu rabbanon dal samanim achshabei rachmana. Or you could say this question. So according to that, but so this question of that question is if you say that according to a mayor that while it's in the Meya Imai, it's not shaykh to become shachat, according to the Rabbanan who say that even if you have a fully grown, viable baby inside of the mother when you shecht it, there's no shchita on that animal, unlike Reb Meir, then certainly a shchita is not going to be counted. If you say according to Reb Meir who says that it doesn't need shchita, that has more shaykh to shchita, so the shchita inside the mother was saying is not going to count, so according to the Rabbanan it won't. Or maybe this question could even apply to according to Rabbanan. There's no such thing that the ability of shechting the mother, that it can be metar the uber, preempts the shchita of the uber. No, the Torah just added on an extra ability. They made dalot simanim. In addition to the two simanim of the uber, the Torah also allowed the simanim of the mother to be machshir the ben pakua. Amar Chananya. So that's our question. Can the shchita of the uber b'mei imai, where it would become tara yidei the shchita of the mother, is that?
So according to Rabbanan, right?
Yeah.
In other words, according to Rabbanan, if you found an animal just lying there, right, the ben pakua, it's good, right?
What are you thinking of lying there? Inside the mother or outside?
What's the case in the Mishnah is
Matzah ben tishachai. The case of the Mishnah is you found you shechted an animal and you found the ben pakua, you found a full-grown animal inside of it.
And according to Rabbanan, it's mutter?
The question is, does it need a shchita in order to make it mutter? He says once it's already full-grown and inside the mother, according to a mayor, it needs its own shchita.
And the Rabbanan?
The Rabbanan say no, it's included in the mother's shchita. It can go, as we're going to see, there's going to even be a shita. You could wait for it to get 5 years old and it's wandering around. You could still eat it without a shchita.
And so according to Rabbanan, the case of Haishinas Yadai, right? What's the question? We're trying to compare it, right?
Well, we're not yet trying to compare. We haven't yet gotten to anything. We haven't discussed anything about Haishinas Yadai. We haven't brought that in. We're going to bring it in a second as a raya. But Haishinas Yadai is a different question. The question is Haishinas Yadai, it's not inside the mother. So that's not part of...
We had the Rav Hoshi asked the question Haishinas Yadai, right? So we said we can answer the question.
Hold on. No, Rav Hoshi is not. I'm sorry, I mixed up what you said. You're saying Haishinas Yadai, he asked this question about Haishinas Yadai.
Right.
We haven't
now
yet
we're trying to say
back.
even it's a question according to a mayor, I get the question.
Do we say it's a question according to the mayor? Um,
Because according to Rameir, he only needs, when Rameir says that Bekor
if the
needs
question is in
Shita,
Rameir, then according to Rabban, it's clear that uh, the shechita is not going to help. That means according to Rameir, that says it needs another shechita. So it's more subject. This ben pakua is
yeah,
more capable of its own shechita. And even so, we're wondering if you shecht it before it's born, right? According to the Chacham, according to Rameir, you need a shechita after it's born.
right,
But what clearing is maybe it needs a shechita, maybe a shechita, according to the mayor, maybe it might not help when it's inside the mother because it's still
right.
subject to the mother. If you shecht the mother, then it's going to need its own shechita, but maybe it doesn't. It's not going to help.
And according
It's
to
not. It's
Rabbanan,
you can't. It's not yet shaykh to shechita.
right, and according to
But according
Rabbanan,
to the Rabban who say that um,
it's
it doesn't need a shechita ever, this ben
right,
pakor. So certainly a shechita is not going to work. If we're saying that according to Rameir, maybe the shechita hasn't yet reached the stage of shechita. According to
yeah,
Rabban that say it doesn't need a shechita at all, certainly the shechita is not going to help before the shechita of the mother. The shechita of the mother is going to preempt it. Or do you say, no, this is a totally different question. The question in the Rabban. We're not questioning in Rameir that it's prior to um, prior to the where the din of shechita applies to this uber. Well, the question is a different question. Do we say that the shechita of the mother, according to the Rabban, you don't need another shechita? But the question is, does that shechita of the mother is that in addition to the ability the shechita of the uber that the Torah added on that the mother shechita also was able to be matar, or is it that no they replaced the shechita of the uber with the shechita of the mother, and therefore the shechita when you stuck it in is not going to help. You're going to have to wait for the shechita of the mother, or wait for it to be born like a normal child, a normal uber, which will then have its own din shechita. So now the Gemara wants to bring a raya back from our Mishnah. Um, Amrav Kana. Oh, did I skip? I lost my place.
Amar of Kananya.
I'm further down, right? Um, go down.
5 lines before the
Oh,
Mishnah.
yeah, I did. Amrav Chananya, Toshma. We'll bring a raya from our Mishnah. Harisha Nolda Treifa Min Habatan. We said if we wanted to bring a raya, we said that we had wanted to say that let's learn out a treifa from a behemoth tmeya. That we said that a behemoth tmeya is shchita is not going to be metaret. So by treifa also the shchita should not be metaret. And we say we're machalik because we wanted to say that a treifa is is was originally tar, and when it became a treifa, it now became not shaykh to shchita. It's no longer so Mashayim Tameya, which is always not good. So on that the Mishnah had asked, but what about a treifa that was born as a treifa? At the time that it was born, it was already a treifa, so it never had a shasa kosher. Isa, and if we're suggesting that it's possible to shecht the animal while it's still inside of the mother, ben pakua, mishkavasla. You could have shchita even on a treifa that was noiled as a treifa. The hoysala shasa kosher. The bayal adiyad of a shachted. If you have an animal that became, a minute before it was born, it became a treifa, right? That's treifa mibatan at this point. We're assuming even before it's born, it became a treifa. But before it became a treifa, while it was in the mother, we are clearing, we are contemplating the possibility you could shech the animal, the uber, even inside the mother. So even if it became a treifa prior to its birth, there still was a shasa kosher that shchita could have been allowed on it. So why are we slugging up the raya from a behemoth tmeya? We're trying to say that we're trying to distinguish between treifa and and a tmeya. We said we can't really distinguish them with them because sometimes you have a treifa that was never roy for shchita, just like a behemoth tmeya if it became a treifa mibetin. One says even if it was a treifa mibetin, even if it was a treifa from the time of birth, prior to birth, it was roy for shchita. Amalei Rava, I think it's a pretty obvious response to that. Tni. We're not talking about that it became a treifa at the time of birth, but it became a treifa at the time of conception. You could have an animal that has 5 legs. So as soon as it was conceived, it was already a treifa. We said before, an animal that has an extra leg, it's the same thing as if it's missing a leg, and missing a leg is a treifa. So this is from the time of conception, it was already there, so it never had a shasa kosher. You never could have shechted this animal. So this is a raya that, so your raya is not a raya. It's not fair from the fact that you could shecht an animal prior to the betan, because even so, it could have been a treifa earlier than that. Zok the Mishnah. Hashoichet es ha-behema, u'matza ba ben shmoyne chai, a mace, he found inside of it we're talking about cows. Cows have a 9-month gestation. They have a 9-month pregnancy, just like a human being. If the Vlad is 8 months old, it's not viable. I don't even understand exactly how that works. It means if it's ready to be born after 8 months, it's fully grown after 8 months. I think that means it's not viable. It can't survive. Or a ben tishamei, so if it's already dead, it's a stillborn 9 months that theoretically could have been viable, but lamaisa it's dead. Kairo matzias dami. According to everyone, both the Rameh and the Rabbanan, they're going to have an argument in a minute, but on this is something that's not alive or not viable to be alive. You can you don't have to shecht that uber. It's going to, so when you shechted the mother, this applied for this uber. This uber did not have its own independent life. It doesn't need a shchit. Matzah ben tishachai, but if you shecht the mother and you find a live animal, which is what we call a ben pakua, it's an animal that's fully capable of living on its own. Ton shchita, it's going to need its own shchita, which is not, we always focus on the Rabbanan who disagree on Rameir, but Rameir says this whole din of ben pakua is not a thing. It needs its own shchita. And when you shecht that, let's say you shechted the mother and it came out this live uber, it's going to be considered its own shchita, that if you shecht it, that's going to be a valid shchita. There's a halacha that you can't shecht a mother together with a child on the same day, and you're going to have to wait for the next day to shech the uber. Divrei Reb Meir, that's Reb Meir. They disagree. They hold the classic din of a ben pakua that we're familiar with. The fascinating idea that an uber that's inside of the mother becomes mutter through the shchita of the mother. It doesn't need its own shchita. If Shimon Shizuri afilu ben chamesh shanim v'chayrish besada shchitas imam mitarase. Shimon Shizuri says, and it sounds very much like the Rabbanon, that even if this uber lives for 5 years, that's grown into a full-grown ox, the shchita of the mother was already mitared, it doesn't need a shchita. The Gemara is going to ask later on, what's the difference between Shimon Shizuri and the Rabbanon? I haven't seen it yet, but I suspect it's going to be, we've talked about that there's a takanas chachamim, that one is not allowed, one is required to shecht this ben pakua in order to avoid a mistake. Shimon Shizuri seems to hold we're not concerned about that. The Mishnah continues, Kara, if instead of shechting the mother, you ripped open the mother, ben tes chai, tan shchita, then it needs a shchita, because the mother was not shechted. It's just telling you that although the Torah says minha behema, right? We said, we darshened all the way back at the beginning of the sugya that the Torah says min ha-behema, from the behema, which we dash to mean from the behema, that an animal that comes from behema does not need a shchita. We said, right, that was by Sheisha Sesa. Whoever eats a behema, that's Sheisha Sesa, v'maligera, min ha-behema, oisa techelu, that you could eat. It's coming to tell you something that came from inside a behema becomes mutter, but that's only al yedei shchita. It doesn't mean that you can just remove it without a shchita and eat it. Amr Balaz Amr Abaishia. Hilchul boy, I'm sorry. Amr Abaishia. Loi hilchul boy elal iskei shchita belvad. That which we said that the Chachamim say that this ben pakua, that we shechted the mother and you found a live animal does not need its own shchita, that's only legabe the halachas of shchita. Lemute mai, what is it coming to exclude? Legabe, what din is it still considered to be an independent animal? Lemute chelva v'gidai. To be mayat that it's chelav and gidim, it's not considered just to be another part of the mother, and therefore the chelva and the gidai are not respected to be aser. Rather, when you take a full-fledged, a viable fetus after the shechita of the mother out, the chelav and the gidim, the gid hanasha of that animal are going to be aser. So the Gemara asks, which seems to be a pretty obvious question: Chelva demai. What chelav are we talking about? Ilem chelva dishlil nifig pligi. We have a machlekes on that. The Tanya gid hanasha noyig b'shlil b'chal b'yasa divrei meir. Remeir said that the gid hanasha is noyig by the shlil, but the chelav is going to be aser according to Remeir. Remeir says you need another shechita, right? Remeir said it doesn't become mutter with the shechita of the mother. And he will say the gid hanasha and the chelav are both going to be aser. Rabbi Yehuda is the chachamim of our Mishnah, who say the shechita of the mother is metar, allows you to eat the ben pakua. He says the gid hanasha is not going to be noyig by the shlil, and the chelav is mutter. So why are we questioning? How could Rav Elazar bar Moshe say that it's coming that the din of ben pakua is mutter for the shechita of the mother is coming to exclude the chelav and the gid? If Rav Yehuda, who's the man the Amar of who is the chachamim, says that it's mutter. They're going l'shitasa of our Mishnah. That Meir said that you need another shchita, so therefore the chelav and the gid hanasha are both independently aser. And according to the chachamim, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that he going also l'shitasa that the chelav and the gid is just part of the mother and it's not aser. Ella, so the gid. It's not about the independent chelav and gid of the uber, but rather what we're talking about, and it's a little bit hard to understand how this fits into the lashon. It's talking about the chelav that's on the gid, it's talking about of a regular animal, and he's saying that the chelav that's on the gid hanasha is not going to be awesome. Practically Gemara, milfud pligi, that itself was also a different independent machlekes. The Tanya, gid hanasha, mechatet achrav b'chol makom shehu. You have to cut it out wherever it is. B'chaytich shmanay me'ikroi diremei, and Remeir says you have to remove all of its chelav that's attached to it. That's also has a din chelav that will be awesome. Rabbi Yehuda says, I don't understand exactly the physical situation, but he says that you only have to take off the part that's exposed, that's sticking out. That chelav has to be removed. Rashi says, you cut off the protruding part. That part of the chelav is also you take whatever's sticking out the shayfi is like the rounded off section of the gid hanasha that has fat inside of it. So as long as nothing is sticking out past that, it's going to mutter. The dami legid va'asam midrabanan. V'shroshin shel chelvei mutar. That part that's sticking out is like the gid itself, and it's awesome. But the shroshin, he basically says that this chelav is mutter al chelav. It just part of it appears like the get. So this is its own machlokes. So how could you say that's what we're referring to? Eliyit marhachiyit. So we're still looking for what does it mean when we said that this din of the Chachamim, that the Shechita is applicable to be Metayr, the Ben Pakua, only applies to Shechita. That only is talking about eating, and what does that come to exclude? It's come to exclude that there's no din of that don't think that it's not considered a behema, and therefore one could be reveyet without any consequences. And legabe the din of chayrish, two species together, you'll say, oh, this ben pakua is its own different thing. It's part of the mother. It's not an independent animal. So therefore, there's no din of being chayrish, a different animal together with it. Okay, you know what? We're going to stop over here. I think this is pretty challenging stuff, so we'll continue tomorrow.